This week's Parsha is Parshat Ve'etchanan, which is the 45th Parsha of the Torah and the second Parsha in the 5th book of the Torah in Devarim, which is the final book of the Torah. And in this week's Parsha, Moses continues sort of reviewing some of the most critical things that have happened, or most important things that have happened since Moses became a leader in the land of Egypt. He's sort of trying to go through all of these different events that he really thinks are important to pass on to the next generation, because he knows that he won't be able to enter the land of Israel, that he's going to die in the desert. And so he's trying to impart sort of wisdom on the Jewish people in his sort of final moments. And so some of the things that he goes over again in this week's Parsha are the 10 Commandments. Moses once again recites sort of the 10 Commandments that he says, sort of remember how we all prepared and we got ready to receive the 10 Commandments, and God came and the whole nation of Jewish people prophesied, and we received the 10 Commandments from God. And so he reviews what the 10 Commandments are, and that's something very important. A little bit before the 10 Commandments portion of this week's Parsha, Moses sort of tells the Jewish people, he is sort of giving them a prophecy or a foreshadowing of future events. And so one of these events is that Moses is telling the Jewish people that one day you're going to be banished from the land of Israel because you're going to become idolatrous. And so you're going to be sort of exiled from your own land, from this land that you haven't even entered yet, that you've been wandering to get to for a long time. But because the people are going to go after idols, they are going to be banished from the land of Israel. But, he says, and I'm going to read the line directly, Moses tells the people that once they're banished from the land, after many years and time has passed, it says, from there, meaning from exile, you will seek Hashem your God, and you will find him if you search for him with all your heart and with all your soul. So essentially, when the Jewish people are going to be in distress, when the Jewish people are going to be exiled and banished from the land of Israel, they are going to remember God, find God if they search for him hard. When they're in exile, it's not going to be as easy. They're going to have to put in true effort and search for God with all their heart and with all their soul. And then they'll be able to find God and remember God and return to God. Hashem will forgive them and be merciful to them because Hashem is a merciful God. And I thought that was interesting that it said, with all your heart and with all your soul. And then later on in the Parsha, after the 10 Commandments, we receive the Shema, which is sort of a proclamation or a declaration that is sort of fundamental and core to Judaism. It is sort of a one line that gives sort of an essence of Judaism or monotheism. And the line is, Hear, O Israel, Hashem is our God, Hashem is one. And something like that kind of line that seems so simple is really something at the core of Judaism. It's something that we say twice daily. We say it in the morning, we say it at night. It is one of the main parts of the service on Yom Kippur. It's sort of like the essence of the Yom Kippur service. It's something that most Jewish people are familiar with or have heard of before. It's really this line that is central and core in Judaism, and we receive that in this week's Parsha. And then we receive the second, so there's that line of the Shema, and then there's 3 more paragraphs of the Shema prayer. And the second paragraph we also receive in this week's Parsha. The line is, You shall love Hashem your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your resources. And these matters that I command you today shall be upon your heart. You shall teach them thoroughly to your children, and you shall speak of them when you sit in your home, when you walk on the way, when you retire, and when you arise. Bind them as a sign upon your arm, and let there be ornaments between your eyes. And write them on the doorposts of your house and upon your gates. So again, we come back to heart and soul in this. It reminds me of that song by Hoagie Carmichael. Probably, if any of you play piano, or you probably have heard this song before. It's a really popular duet. And the line in the song is, Heart and soul, I fell in love with you, heart and soul. And so I was thinking that it's interesting that earlier on in the Parsha we saw the line about if you search for Hashem your God with all your heart and with all your soul when you're in exile, that you will find God. And then here in the Shema, which is the central prayer in Judaism, or the central declaration or line of Judaism, that the paragraph that follows it is that you shall love Hashem your God with all your heart and with all your soul. And what I found was interesting about that in a way is sometimes it's hard to distinguish what's heart and soul, because if you love somebody with your heart, isn't that kind of like loving them with your soul? It's hard sometimes to distinguish between those two elements, because if you really deeply, truly love somebody, that feels like a soul connection more than just something physical. So I was trying to think about the difference between heart and soul. So heart is something that, again, maybe is more physical. Us as humans, we have bodies. We're given these bodies that contain our soul. And our bodies contain our soul, but they also, again, they have our heart. So the heart is, in essence, sort of a representation of the physical way that we can love God. So the actions we can take that demonstrate to God that we love Him and that we are trying to observe His commandments and perform His mitzvahs. So if we look at it, what could be an example of loving God with our heart? Maybe that is donating our time. So maybe that is, volunteering at a food pantry. That's something that we do that's a physical action that is showing God an appreciation and something charitable, and that's something that comes from our hearts. The feeling that comes out of giving of our time and giving of ourselves and our bodies is the soul connection. Those emotions that you feel when you see people who are the recipients of your good actions is that soul connection. It's loving God with your soul. It's internalizing things that your bodies do and making that deep. When you think about love in any sort of relationship, it's something that takes work. It's something that you do have that soul connection, you do have that deep internal love, but you have to show somebody you love them. You have to have actions that show them you love them. If you're in a relationship and you feel love, but you never express it, you never say it, you never, buy somebody gifts or are affectionate to them, how can they know that you love them if it's just something that's inside of you? So it's kind of the same thing with God. To love God with our hearts and our souls means that we love Him inside, deep, deep inside of ourselves, we love God. We know that internally. But with our hearts and with our bodies, we show God love by the actions we do, by telling God, speaking these words to God, that we love God. We love Him with our hearts and our souls and our, bodies, minds, everything. All of our being loves God. And I think that that's something really nice that we can sort of internalize. And going back to the Shema for a moment, when we say the Shema, we cover our eyes like this and we say the prayer, or, some people cover it with like their fingers sort of more in this formation. But in essence, we close our eyes, we cover our eyes, and we say that first line of the Shema, Hear, O Israel, Hashem is our God, Hashem is one. And so there are many different reasons or interpretations why we close and cover our eyes. So yes, it's for concentration, and it's for, being able to focus more clearly, to eliminate the distractions. But I heard a very nice idea from Chabad, which was that when we close our eyes and we recognize that Hashem is God and Hashem is our creator, when we open our eyes, we can see the world in a new way. When we open our eyes and we see, wow, like God made all of this. He made the sky, He made the trees, He made my family, He made it possible for people to create the chair I'm sitting on and the table I have, and He made all of these different items. Like, God is the creator, and if we can sort of see the world in that new light when we say the Shema, then it becomes easier to love God too, because you say, wow, like God made all of this. And if as something that we can maybe do to make our Shema more meaningful is if when we open our eyes we just take a moment and we look around and we say, wow, like Hashem was our creator, Hashem made all of this. It can make it that much more meaningful. So I hope that you all were able to learn a little bit about the difference between the heart and the soul and that connection. I'm sure we're all going to have the song Heart and Soul stuck in our heads for a while. I apologize for that in advance, and I wish you all a wonderful week and a Shabbat Shalom.